Good morning. Today is Saturday, October 22nd. I'm Abby Huntsman, and we start with a Fox News alert. An unprecedented cyber attack taking down some of the most popular websites on Earth, and in a way we have never seen before. The hackers taking control of the devices in your home to carry out one of the biggest internet attacks in U.S. history.
And then a lecture on cybersecurity from, brace yourselves, Hillary Clinton. Watch this.
Applying the Department doing policies and being alert to potential threats will help protect all of us.
Just be sure not to put your emails on an unsecured server in a closet in your office. That is absolutely key. We'll have the rest of the tape coming up.
Noted. Thank you very much. It's been part of Hillary's core campaign message for months. Take a look.
I condemn all violence in our political arena.
Oh, too bad, because nobody told Uncle Joe.
The press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
I don't know what that would look like. But Uncle Joe's a tough guy, apparently. Mornings are better with friends. Thanks for being here with us.
Good morning. Joining us on the set, the great Pete Hegseth.
Oh, thank you.
It is good to see you, Pete.
Straight from Vegas.
Straight from Vegas. Still got chips in my pocket. I actually do, literally.
I was there with you. I saw you cleaning up the crap table.
I did. It was blackjack, and I owned it.
You jumped in the pool. You guys didn't bring me back anything. I was the only one that didn't get to go.
That's true. And I'm the only
gifts.
one there who didn't take my clothes off on camera and jump in the pool.
And I did not. I did.
Okay. Good job.
We got that on tape. It's deep in the archives. We begin, though, this morning with the race to the White House. We're just 17 days away from the election, and Donald Trump is gearing up for a major speech this morning.
And one where he's going to outline what the first 100 days of a Trump presidency is going to look like.
Peter Doocy is live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, ahead of that rally here for the curtain opener. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Tucker and Abby and Pete. That's right. This morning, about 5 hours from right now, Donald Trump is going to be here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, with a list of the stuff that he says he would do with his first 100 days as President Trump.
We're going to be doing a lot of things. We're going to be lowering taxes. We're going to be strengthening our border. We're going to be getting rid of regulations. The regulations are going to be gone because, I mean, you look at this country, what's happening with regulations, and we need them for security and we need them for certain things like the environment, but our regulations are just taking over our companies. We can't compete anymore. We're going to be terminating, repealing, and replacing Obamacare. We're going to be saving our Second Amendment. There are a lot of things, Sean. It's going to be, I think it's going to be very special.
I knew this morning a Reuters poll that shows Trump's talk about the election being rigged against him may be catching on with his base in a very meaningful way, because the poll finds that half of Republicans will not accept Hillary Clinton as their president, and 70% say that if Hillary wins, it would be because election laws were broken. Late last night, Trump tweeted that, quote, the media refuses to talk about 3 new national polls that have me in first place. Biggest crowds ever. Watch what happens. And there are a handful of national tracking polls that put Trump on top. The ground that he needs to make up, though, is in swing states, and Pennsylvania appears to be at the top of his to-do list. Clinton leads by 6 points in the Real Clear Politics average of polls here, but Trump came to Pennsylvania for 2 rallies yesterday, and he's coming back to Gettysburg this morning for another one. The campaign says that he picked Gettysburg because there's a strong connection to Lincoln, who gave the Gettysburg Address here, and because this is the place that Lincoln was seen as uniting the country, and that's something that Trump is trying to do right now.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
A huge moment in U.S. history.
The great Peter Doocy, live in Gettysburg, addressing us from Gettysburg, in fact.
That's right.
So everybody in the press, with the exception of some small portions of it, basically called this race over. It's over. You know, Hillary's already picking her cabinet.
Many did that months ago, though.
Exactly. But now it's just accelerated. It's like, not only that, every Republican on the planet, from senators to room mothers, is going to lose.
It's an absolute given. I was working out hard on the elliptical yesterday watching.
You love the elliptical,
I do
Pete.
love it. I can't help it. I can't run. Anyway, it's on the screen was another channel, and it was done. It's over. It's over. They're not even willing to discuss the possibility that Trump could come back.
But is this the first time we've heard that?
I don't think it is.
No. Trump has come back actually a few times in this race so far. And so the question is this premature? Because we know in politics, things can change very, very quickly. you look at the polls here, I mean, you can see how they have changed just over the past few months. Clinton obviously up now, but there is one poll showing that he is up by 2 points. So the question is, with 3 weeks to go, can he regain some of that momentum and actually win this thing?
All of those moments where Clinton was up 6 or 7%, you see it on the screen, we were told this is over, it's done.
Right.
And then just in mere weeks later, in the first one, it's 16 days, if I can get my math right, a month, we've got 17 days between now and Election Day. The history shows us that when Clinton is up, if Trump tightens his message, and there's a few scandals in there that supposedly bumped him off course, he's able to close the gap because the sentiment of the American people in this election cycle is with him, is with a change,
I think more
is with a
resonate
rejection.
with that message, one that we're going to hear today at Gettysburg,
Right.
Tucker. And this is, I think, the Trump we're going to see today that many people were wanting months ago, even on the debate stage, talking about the issues, talking about the economy, talking about immigration, issues that the American voter cares the most about. Why have we not seen this the whole time? Because I think the recipe for success for Trump was a pretty easy one going against Hillary Clinton.
For sure. Because he gets off topic. I mean, that's who he is. But I would say that the message now is the system is rigged. Now, this infuriates everyone in Washington, people who are obviously very much bought into the system, who run the system. I don't think there's any evidence that our voting machines are controlled by the Democratic Party, for example. There is a ton of evidence that our immigration policy is designed to increase the number of Democratic voters. If we're importing people solely for their contribution to the Democratic Party, that is election rigging. I mean, that's the name of it. You know, if you're changing the electorate in order to help your party, what is that?
And that gives you this guttural sense that it is stacked against you.
Well, it is,
What Trump has done, though, every time he said something, I step back and go, is that right? But he's just speaking what people feel, that, hey, it is weighted against me. It feels rigged. And then the press goes nuts because technically, is it rigged? Is it not rigged? No, it's this sense.
Because they're instinctively on the side of the establishment, which is exactly where they shouldn't be. They should be instinctively on the side of the public. That's who they represent. But when the establishment is threatened, boy, but they get their hackles up like nothing else.
Right, but that's what people find so refreshing about Donald Trump. And Hillary Clinton, at times, has been the opposite. We've seen with these WikiLeaks. There's a new video that actually exposes Hillary Clinton lecturing her staff at the State Department on, get this, the importance of cybersecurity. This is back in 2010. Let's take a look.
Protecting our cyber infrastructure and digital networks has to be a matter of national security as well as economic priority. I think this is a responsibility that we share as Americans. But as State Department employees, we have a special duty to guard ourselves and our sensitive information. The real key to cybersecurity is the best we do. Complying with Department community policies and being alert to potential threats will help protect all of us. Because together we can do our part to improve the security of the State Department and of our nation.
Is that real? Is that Secretary Homebrew Server lecturing the rest of us on cybersecurity? That's like a cannibal pushing veganism. It just doesn't work.
You have a special duty to guard ourselves and our sensitive information. Email me on my personal account.
I love video. It's hilarious.
Does she know she's lying inside her?
Well, it just feeds the narrative that the rules are for everybody else, but for me, it doesn't really apply.
Well,
I kind of do what I want. I can do what I want in my basement.
Well, but I
you
would
guys
just say
all have to
that
abide.
all of us tell lies, and all of us hope the rules don't apply to us. That's a very human thing. It's the lack of self-awareness that cracks me up. It's the not sort of getting the joke about yourself. If you can with a straight face look at the camera and be like, cybersecurity is so important, but I'm keeping my server in the bathroom because, cybersecurity.
No, we've all employed do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
But she lives it in a way that she doesn't.
And she doesn't seem to realize it. That's the amazing part.
Meanwhile, though, I think we're the only ones that are probably going to be talking about that video this morning. But also this moment, Joe Biden was on the stump talking about Donald Trump and getting a little physical, saying that he hopes to maybe get in a fight behind the gym. Listen to this.
He said, because I'm famous, because I'm a star, because I'm a billionaire, I can do things other people can't. What a disgusting assertion for anyone to make. The press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
Oh, Joe.
Whoa, tough guy. I kind of like that, actually. I mean, I think he's pretty funny, but I wish the press applied the same standard to everyone else as they do to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden will say these sort of over-the-top things, which I find amusing, and I think you ought to be allowed room for humor, right? I do.
Of course, yeah.
In a normal country. And yet, when anyone else attempts this, particularly Trump, they're like, oh, you're inciting violence.
Absolutely humorless. You cannot do that. Yeah. In fact, one of those was, of course, Hillary Clinton early on this year when at some of these rallies, there was Donald Trump was using some salty language, and this is what Hillary had to say about that.
I condemn all violence in our political arena. I condemned it when Donald Trump was inciting it and congratulating people who were engaging in it. I condemn it by those who are taking violent protests to physical assault against Donald Trump. This has to end. He set a very bad example.
So, including the ones your party paid for to go to Trump rallies, right. Including Black Lives Matter, right? No, you're not condemning anything that's not politically expedient for you to condemn.
So we'll be waiting for the condemnation of Joe Biden's announcement. Also, just so you know, the left that they created, you can't go back, take anybody behind the gym anymore and beat him up. You need to go to a mediator.
No.
Is that how it works?
Mediator. Oh man, wait till you have kids. It's unbelievable. Yeah. There's none of that.
There's no
They
fighting
call the cops
anymore.
if your kid does
Exactly.
that.
Can I talk about this violence, though, just real quickly? It feels like this country is so divided with these two candidates. You have unfavorabilities like we've never seen before on both sides. You know, I was in Florida last week, and it's always good to get a sense of how voters are talking about the election outside of here in New York. And I heard over and over again, I don't even want to talk about who I'm voting for or this election because you never know who you're talking to. And it ends up being, you know, sort of a violent situation. People don't want to go home for Thanksgiving, I've heard, because they don't want to have that conversation with members of the family that disagree with them. And this is where we are.
That's true. I've had people say to me, just don't tell my wife but I'm voting for Trump.
That's something I have heard before, too.
All right, we do have some other headlines, though, to get to this morning. And we do begin with a Fox News alert and brand new details on that massive cyber attack that knocked out major U.S. internet sites like Netflix, Twitter, and Amazon. Experts say hackers use phishing software to infect home-based devices like DVRs, cable boxes, and personal security cameras to take down those sites. Wikileaks claims that some of its supporters are behind the attacks, tweeting this: Mr. Assange is still alive and WikiLeaks is still publishing. We ask supporters to stop taking down the U.S. internet. You proved your point. Panic and evacuations are underway at Hillary Clinton's campaign office after a suspicious substance is found inside a letter. Interns found the material at Clinton's Manhattan-based D.C. office before taking it to her Brooklyn headquarters, exposing 2 other people. Emergency crews then evacuated the entire floor, and this morning it is still not clear if the substance was dangerous. Clinton was not at the office at the time. And athletes aren't the only ones kneeling during the national anthem. More singers are now joining in on the protest.
Is that real?
Apparently, that's Anasia Lawrence kneeling during her performance before the Miami Heat game, even wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt while she did it. The Heat releasing a statement saying, "We were unaware of it ahead of time. This isn't the first time this has happened." Just 2 weeks ago, a national anthem singer kneeled before a Sacramento Kings game. Those are your headlines. I mean, you look at the viewership, though. I did a report on this yesterday with the NFL. It has gone down pretty tremendously even compared to last year, and some are blaming it on Colin Kaepernick and kneeling during the anthem.
I don't think the commissioners help much either, to be totally honest with you.
You can only wear your socks a certain way in the NFL,
right,
but you can choose to sit.
He's still making $40 million a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's rough. Yeah. All right, the polls may not be in Trump's favor right now, but the betting odds, well, they are. We'll talk to one bookmaker seeing a surge of bets just like they saw, almost exactly like they saw before Brexit.
Can you believe it? We are 17 days now until the election, and Donald Trump says that while the polls may not be in his favor, the odds are. He says, just look at what happened in the UK a few months ago.
The level of excitement and the people coming out, I think we're going to have beyond Brexit. I think we'll go beyond Brexit. You know about Brexit. I think we're going to have that.
And he's got a reason to say that. It turns out a major British bookmaker is seeing a surge of bets for a Trump victory, just like they did before Brexit. So here to explain the comparison is Graham Sharp. He's the spokesperson from bookmakers. His name is William Hill. So, Graham, help us out here. How is this similar to what we saw in Brexit? Everybody here in America is wondering. We're seeing polls; they're trending in a certain direction. What is this comparison?
Yes, we had the polls telling us that that Brexit wasn't going to happen, and that the Remain vote would be overwhelmingly in favour and would win the day. And the betting odds slightly reflected that. This far out, as we are now from the polling day in the US election, this far out on the Brexit vote, we were looking at odds of 2 to 9. That was about an 82% chance that it would be Remain, and odds of 3 to 1 against that it would be Leave. However, if you analyse the way the betting had been going, it told a different story. 75% of the actual betting money was for Remain, but some 70% of the actual bets themselves, individual bets, were for Leave. Now, of course, whether you'd had £100,000 on Remain, as one of our clients had, or £1 on Leave, as another had, those two people only had one vote each. So the more significant of the two factors was the number of individual bets. And now we're seeing much the same phenomenon in our betting on the US election.
So,
at the moment, we are 1 to 6 for a Clinton win and 4 to 1 against, which is only a 20% chance for Donald Trump.
Yes,
Having said that, again, we're seeing overwhelmingly the individual big bets are for Hillary, but the vast majority of the smaller individual wagers are for Trump. And you were just mentioning before the break the phenomenon whereby some people, although they know they're going to vote for Trump, are not prepared to say that in public. We saw exactly that in terms of people who supported Brexit said, but I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want to get into a row. So the parallels are there. It doesn't necessarily mean that the same thing will happen. And indeed, we've got some clients who've had massive bets on Hillary Clinton. Somebody had 550,000 euros, which equates at about £500,000 only last week.
Right, Graham. So I remember covering the story for Fox overnight, and we thought it was going to be a slow night. And all of a sudden, you know, Brexit wins, and I think everyone was sort of shocked by that. And then David Cameron, of course, steps down. But we showed the percentage earlier. 70% from your polling predicted this to happen. 65 are now predicting Donald Trump. But here we're listening to the media. We're listening to the polls. How surprised were you when this happened over in the UK?
Personally, I wasn't over surprised. A lot of people were, and the media was taken completely by surprise. We were betting overnight, all night long, and it was about 5 to 2 in the morning that all of a sudden Brexit became the favourite, and from that point on it just it snowballed, and all those people who'd gone to bed convinced that they knew what the result was going to be had to revise their opinion when they woke up the next morning.
Woke up with a different story.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Graham Sharp, thank you very much for enlightening the whole Brexit conversation. We'll be tracking those bets in real time.
Thank you, Graham.
Sir. Yeah, more than welcome. Thank you.
You got it. All right, up next, what Hillary's open borders are going to mean for you.
Well, remember this question of the debate on open borders? Hillary Clinton dodged it completely. Watch this.
As we've learned from the Wikileaks that you said this, and I want to quote, "My dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders."
What's really important about Wikileaks is that the Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans.
That was a great pivot off the fact that she wants open borders, okay? How did we get on to Putin?
It was a clever diversion, but what about the policy proposal, the one that she made out loud? Well, since dodging that question, people are wondering, where does Hillary's immigration plan stand, and how would it benefit American workers, if at all? Here to discuss is attorney and immigration advocate Francisco Hernandez. Francisco, great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us. So when Hillary Clinton speaks about immigration, she talks about the benefit to immigrants, which is real and obvious. She says very little about the effect on Americans. So here are the facts. In the last 14 years, 118,000 fewer native-born Americans are working. 118,000 fewer. Over that same period, 5.7 million immigrants have jobs in America who didn't before. So it's a massive increase in jobs for people who arrived here from other countries and a net loss for Americans. Open borders would accelerate that, would it not?
Well, the concept of open borders, it's undefined, and Mrs. Clinton, neither Mrs. Clinton or Mr. Trump can do anything about it. It has to be through Congress. But I don't know about those statistics. We truly know that these immigrants take jobs that Americans won't take. So if Mr. Trump wants to build a wall, we're going to have to legalize 100,000 Mexicans just to build it. And that's a pretty good start. So maybe Mr. Trump is the reform advocate for immigration, not Mrs. Clinton.
Well, they won't, of course, take them at these wages, apparently. But the truth is, because you remember supply and demand from high school, if you have an overabundance of something, its value falls. That's why sand is cheap. And so if you have an overabundance of labor at the bottom of the labor pool, it drives down wages for people who already live here. There's no disputing that. That's happened. And so wages are stagnant or falling in the middle of the country because, in part, of immigration. There's no way to deny that.
If the jobs are there, the people are going to come. Obviously, they're filling the jobs. All you got to do is offer them to U.S. citizens, but nobody's going to get up on a roof or build a highway, pour concrete in 105-degree heat in Texas. Okay, guys, there is a market for that labor.
Oh, so Americans are lazy. But wait, may I ask you a question, though? Would you do your job for $4 an hour? No, you wouldn't. The point is, you have a high-paying job, so do I, is that people don't want to do jobs for low pay, and the pay drops when people from countries with much lower standards of living come here and work for less. That's supply and demand. Are you denying that? I mean, come on.
Yes, I'm denying it. You have wage and wage standards that are prevailing throughout the country. There's plenty of enforcement. There's enforcement going on right now. The question is, what are we going to do about the immigration issue? We're going to keep putting our head in the sand like we have for 16 years now. What are we going to do about it? When is Congress going to act? Forget who's president. It's who is in the Congress, and whether the Congress is going to do anything.
Well, so you're making a case on behalf of the immigrants themselves, and that's that's the position of the left. But I mean, if we have over
a case
10
on behalf of America,
and we don't know how many illegal immigrants are in this country, but it's over 10 million. If we don't even know how many are living here within a million, and we don't, we have open borders already, do we not? I mean, what if we can't?
No.
Over 10 million people in the country unaccounted for, and you don't have open borders? I think that's the definition of it, isn't it?
Oh, we don't have open borders. In fact, the only ones crossing the border are drug cartels and smugglers that are all criminals. No, we need comprehensive reform. We want to know who these people are in our country, but we want to keep them in the shadows. Well, I'm not saying we got to give them amnesty, but temporary worker permits, you and I could agree on that, but we do want them to come out of the shadows and tell us who they are.
Actually, you are
so we
saying
can focus on the people.
But may I ask you a question?
I'm sorry.
You're making a very good point about the drug dealers and the massive heroin epidemic, which is coming almost exclusively from Mexico, that drug. Why?
Actually, it's coming from Central America and South America.
But through Mexico. But why wouldn't building a wall help slow that flow? What's the argument against building a wall? I'm a little confused.
We got to stop using the drugs. The drugs are coming because we're using it.
So our kids who die of heroin ODs are the ones whose fault it is. Is that what you're going to say? That your mom and son died of a heroin OD? It's his fault?
Well, we're using it and we're buying it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So anything,
if we didn't buy it, it wouldn't come.
Okay.
If we wouldn't hire them, they wouldn't come.
But we didn't take it before they started importing heroin. There was no heroin epidemic in northern New England, for example, before Mexico started bringing it into this country. Remember?
Mexico didn't start bringing it. It's the drug smugglers. It's not Mexico. It's not immigrants. It's not undocumented aliens. It is drug smugglers that are bringing it, and we're buying it.
Who, by the way, are all of the above. But anyway, I wish we could continue this. I feel like we're reaching a point of agreement here. Francisco, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Have a good weekend.
You too. Hillary Clinton has a Morocco mess on her hands. WikiLeaks revealed she personally negotiated a $12 million payday from a corrupt king. That's redundant, by the way. Does she still owe him the favor she was giving in return? Mark McKinnon has that story. It could be a big deal as the election approaches. And Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg testing the waters for her next career in her 80s.
It's Wednesday, the morning of the third and final debate. We're in Las Vegas, home of the current minority leader of the Senate, former majority leader for the Democrats, Harry Reid. He is a former boxer. He's the southpaw from Searchlight, and he's a tough little dude, man. Morning, Senator. How are you? Nice to see you.
Good. I thought it'd be better just all the necessary questions.
Senator, WikiLeaks is an emerging story this week. Can you talk about its relevance, its importance? Is it appropriate to be talking about the WikiLeaks contents that reporters are talking about?
Well, I think what WikiLeaks has brought to my attention is the fact that it's part of what Russia's doing to try to influence the election. A man who's wanted for sexual crimes is hidden out in the Ecuadorian embassy.
It's unbelievable. Here now is the co-creator, co-executive producer, and co-host of The Circus and former advisor to President George W. Bush, our friend Mark McKinnon. Mark,
Morning, Mark.
Another powerful segment.
Well,
that was intense.
You know what the powerful segment is going to be is you. You're going to be on the show tomorrow night.
Oh!
But the whole show...
I didn't sign a release, by the way. You're in trouble.
One of the things we talked about, that you talked about, is how the mainstream media has not talked about WikiLeaks. And so we're going to focus the whole show tomorrow night on The Circus on WikiLeaks.
And why hasn't the mainstream?
Well, part of the problem has been that Trump has avoided it. I mean, the media's going to talk about what he talks about, and he doesn't have enough message discipline. He should be talking about that 24/7. There's so much in there. You talked about some of the stuff this morning, the foreign governments, the pay-to-play stuff. I mean, there's still the Qatar contribution of $1 million that was supposedly for Bill Clinton's birthday. And we still don't know the answer to that one.
Well, to that point, another one that broke this week that I think might be one of the most troubling of all the things we've seen is what happened in Morocco.
Yeah.
Here you have Uma Abedi, obviously her closest aide, an email exchange. She's talking about $12 million. And this is after, by the way, Hillary Clinton announced for president. How problematic is this?
Well, it's hugely problematic, and it's Donald Trump's best chance because the debates are over. Those were big opportunities, lost opportunities, arguably. And now the only thing between now and election, barring some catastrophic external event like a terrorist attack, the most likely thing that can happen is something to break out of WikiLeaks.
Right. And here's what it was literally said in that exchange from WikiLeaks, in that email exchange, that this was HRC's idea, which is Hillary Rodham Clinton's idea. Our office approached the Moroccans, and they believe 100% that they're doing this at her request. The king has personally committed approximately $12 million both for the endowment and to supporting the meeting. It will break a lot of China to back out now when we have so many opportunities to do it in the past few months. She's created this mess, and she knows it.
Yeah.
It's effectively a $12 million speech. She is Secretary of State at this time. They say, give to the foundation, and she will come give a speech.
So this was slightly before she announced, but she knew she was running. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Sure. Doesn't look good.
So, but all of this is kind of slipped beneath the waves because the Hillary campaign and the Obama administration successfully pivoted to the question of Russia. This is an example of espionage by the Russian government trying to influence the outcome of the election. That's their claim. And they're citing unnamed, imprecise intelligence. And then the media sort of, obediently is repeating the message. Boy, I'm getting a flashback now to 2002.
Well, I'd say two things. One is they may be right. Okay, it's Russia, so what? I mean, that's an important thing, but it does.
And there might have been weapons of mass destruction, but shouldn't we stop and ask for real evidence?
Well, the more important question is, are they real? And there's no evidence to suggest that they're not. So maybe Russia's doing it, but the Clinton campaign is also saying, oh, well, no one can say.
But isn't that, you're in the press now, isn't that the first question every journalist asks? Not what's its provenance, where'd it come from, but is it true, is it real?
That's exactly my point. And I think that, by the way, you're going to see mainstream media, because there is a vacuum now, I know for a fact that some of the mainstream media are looking at it now. There's going to be some big stories coming out over the next couple of days.
Well, here's the thing, because the Democrats' argument now is with WikiLeaks, we don't want to go there because it's the Russians. We don't want them involved in our elections. That sets a bad precedent. But if this were reversed, we were talking about this in the commercial break, and this were Donald Trump's emails and, exchanges between his team,
oh my God,
that's all that would be talked about.
Sure.
Have you seen a bias like we've seen this election cycle? Because it always exists to some level, but it does feel like this time around it is far worse than it's been.
There's a bias toward conflict, but I mean, the fact is that Trump hasn't been hacked. If he was, I'm sure they'd be talking about it. They'd be going crazy about it.
But you don't see this like on CNN or other channels.
No,
as much.
I mean, that was Tucker's point that he makes in our show tomorrow night.
Do you know a single working journalist who's supporting Trump? I mean, doesn't it affect, look, if 100% of journalists were supporting Trump and none Hillary, would it affect the coverage? Of course it would. I mean, it does, you try to keep your personal views out, but after, I mean, they do leach through.
No question, and I just know intuitively, having worked both sides, been doing this for 30 years, that probably 75% plus of journalists are Democrats.
Right.
But on the other hand, we knew that in the Bush campaign, and we just dealt with it.
But this season, it's like 100%. I mean, I think it's always been probably 80%, but now it just feels like people feel like this moral imperative to stop Big Orange.
Yeah, no, I think that's unquestionably the case in this election.
He doesn't look as orange anymore, though.
Yeah. Whatever, I say that with love, but, you know, they hate him.
And they rush immediately and seize on any aspect, like at the debate when he said, I may not abide, I'm going to look at these election results. The condemnation is swift and complete, as opposed to, and we're not going to play the clip, but Rush Limbaugh and others have said, hey, we know what Trump is really saying. Hey, this system is sort of rigged. He's going to want to see, we've seen other things happen.
I'll say two things about that. I agree, and it's Trump's fault for talking about it. He shouldn't have done it. That's stupid. I mean, saying that, and his advisors said, don't go there. He tried to walk it back and said he walked it off the cliff. But strategically, you should know that as a candidate in a campaign. If you say that, the mainstream media is going to focus on that.
No, you're right. Did his advisor tell him not to say that?
Yes, that's what I hear. That's the reporting.
All right, well, you can tune in tomorrow night and see this guy.
Let's check it out on Circus. Can't
wait. I'll be watching.
It's easy to watch.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Always good to see you.
Hey, you too. Thanks.
We do have some other headlines to get to this morning, starting with Russia, as we were just talking about, this time denying a front row seat to the U.S. election process. 3 states now, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana, have all turned down requests from the Kremlin to send its diplomats to monitor polling stations on Election Day. And this comes after Russia is accused of hacking the DNC and providing Wikileaks with emails in order to influence the election outcome. Hillary Clinton may claim she is all for closing the gender pay gap, but leaked emails are exposing the opposite. According to Wikileaks, the Clinton Foundation pays women less than men. A payroll schedule showing on average men earned about $68,000 in 2011, and that is compared to women who earned about $64,000. Also, this Ruth Bader Ginsburg is hanging up her robe for a new role. The Supreme Court Justice is making her official opera debut next month. And for one night only, she will play a Duchess in The Daughter of the Regiment on its opening night at the Kennedy Center in D.C. But don't expect to hear Justice Ginsburg singing. The frequent opera goer, apparently she loves to go, only has a speaking role. Although I'd love to kind of hear her sing. That would be interesting.
Operas are late, though. She falls asleep a lot.
True.
I'm just saying.
True.
Okay. All right. A powerful and deadly storm hammering the northeast, bringing severe flash flooding. More than a half a foot of rain falling in parts of Massachusetts, turning roads into rivers. And in Pennsylvania, a man is killed when a tree crashes onto his house. Well, we've got Rick Reichmuth, and he's tracking the storm's path. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Still a little bit of rain from that storm today. It's kind of ushering in fall. And I will also tell you the Northeast is under an incredible drought. So we need to get some storms like that. But obviously it comes at a price when you get that much rain that fast. Here's your temperatures. You can kind of see the cooler air moving in behind it. 60 up in Caribou, Maine, and 40 in Chicago, 46 in Memphis as you're starting out this morning. Throughout the day today, we're still going to see kind of a line of storms that will bring some rain, maybe a little bit of localized flooding across parts of the Northeast. And you see that little bit of white there across upstate New York into the Adirondacks. We're going to see a little bit of snow. Some snow even down towards the central Appalachians kind of behind this. So cooler air obviously moving in behind this, and some spots maybe 2 to 3 inches of snow. Down across the southeast, the cooler air settled in as well, waking up in just into the 40s and 50s. And for the day, only getting into the 60s. So if you've been wondering, hey, where's fall? Today is going to feel like it. A nice day to kind of stay inside. Up across the northern plains, also a chillier one, but a pretty dry one overall. And finally, out across areas of the west, we are dry in the southwest, but the Pacific Northwest, we'll see a little bit more rain moving in, at least by tomorrow. A little bit of a break today. All right, guys, send it back to you inside.
Can't believe we're already talking about
snow. Good to see you, Rick. Always. All right, Democratic operatives admitting they're picking fights at Trump rallies.
Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully in it.
And then they tell Hillary what's going on.
Well, I mean, Hillary knows through chain of command.
Yeah.
All right, so what's worse? This guy's made hundreds of trips to the White House, so why isn't the Justice Department investigating?
And an unprecedented cyber attack. Hackers taking control of the devices in your home, and they take down many popular websites. Is this a trial run for Election Day? We're going to cover that. Stick with us.
A Fox News alert for you. The Department of Homeland Security now investigating a serious cyber attack that took down several major websites yesterday. This morning we've learned it was carried out using weapons we've never seen before.
And using your home-based devices like DVRs, cable boxes, and personal security cameras to take down these sites. Here to weigh in is cybersecurity analyst and a senior fellow at the Center for Digital Government, Morgan Wright. Good morning, Morgan. Thanks for waking up so early.
I'm always up early, Abby. No worries.
I love it. So this is what Wikileaks is tweeting out. They say Mr. Assange is still alive and Wikileaks is still publishing. We asked supporters to stop taking down the U.S. internet. You proved your point. Walk us through what is going on here.
Look, this is very unique. I remember in 2000, I was actually leading a team of people. We investigated the first denial of service attacks back in February of 2000. This is orders of magnitude bigger because it's not just using computers. We've turned everything into a computer now. Your smartphone, your smart refrigerator, your IP connected, to the internet surveillance camera, DVRs, like you said. All of these things now become an army of ants that are creating this deluge of traffic, and it's overwhelming these resources in a way they never anticipated before. So this is actually a very big sea change and a huge vulnerability in how we're going to defend ourselves.
It's not just offices, it's things that you have in your own home. As you said, your DVRs. I mean, this is serious
your
stuff.
Baby monitor, your microwave. So as you just said, we didn't anticipate this. Why didn't we? I mean, so much hype around this Internet of Things, and we should all just bow down and accept this, and our lives are going to be improved. Where are the adults saying, wait a second, perhaps there are unintended consequences?
Well, look, Tucker, you hit upon a very key part. One of the areas I've been working in and do some advising on is around the security of embedded systems, software. These devices that are being made have the most atrocious security. They have hard-coded username and passwords, and this malware that's being used is called Mirai, goes out and scans the Internet looking for these devices. It has a profile. When it finds them, it compromises them, networks them all together, and then launches it like not just one fire hose, but 50 fire hoses at a site. And when you do that, it's like the service provider just takes them offline. They're not taking the actual sites offline. What they're taking is the route to those sites offline, and if you can cut the toll booth off, you cut all the traffic off.
So people that are watching this at home and they're thinking, I don't want this to happen to me, I don't want to be hacked, what can they do about this?
Well, most of these folks aren't going to be hacked, but what they can be is the front line of defense, and they can do things like use encryption, make sure that you change your passwords on these devices, and if you have a home network, make sure your wireless access point is encrypted and you turn on your personal firewall. Don't be part of the problem. There's a way to stop traffic from going out of a network and a way to stop traffic from going into a network. You, the consumers, can stop traffic from going out of your network and helping contribute to this.
So one of the most ominous things we're worried about, of course, is this might affect our election. So the digital cheerleaders and the Democratic Party, both of whom were in favor of internet voting, never said out loud what anybody thinking it through might have thought, like, what if this is compromised by a foreign government? Should we be worried about that? Why wouldn't we be?
Well, again, Tucker, it goes back to one of the key findings out of the 9/11 Commission was a failure of imagination. Fast forward that into this digital. We have a failure of imagination here. We can't imagine this happening, so we don't prepare for it. So anything that's related to the Internet, anything where information is stored could be compromised by things like, say, ransomware. Just simply disrupting access is enough. If you thought Gore v. Bush and hanging Chad was a problem, what are you going to do with hanging bits and bytes when those things? So, I mean, it's a huge, complicated issue that will not be solved before the elections.
So all the people who told us the Internet was all good should be ashamed, I think. It's great to see you this morning. Thanks a lot for coming on.
You bet, Tucker.
Good to see
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Donald Trump ready to deliver his Gettysburg Address, laying out his plans for his first 100 days in office. Mike Huckabee, he is joining us here to react just ahead.
Plus, Democratic operatives caught on camera admitting they are picking fights at Trump rallies, and that's not all. One of them has been to the White House hundreds of times. It sounds like a crime, but the DOJ, not investigating.
Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully in.
And then they tell Hillary what's going on.
Well, I mean, Hillary knows through the chain of command.
Yeah. Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully in.
And then they tell Hillary what's going on.
Well, I mean, Hillary knows through the chain of command.
Yeah.
Another morning, and therefore another bombshell coming out of those shocking videos by Project Veritas. Disgraced former Democratic operative Bob Creamer, who admitted on tape to helping incite violence at Trump rallies. He reportedly made more than 300 visits to the White House, even meeting with President Obama himself. So why isn't the FBI investigating all of this? Here with his reaction, former DOJ official J. Christian Adams. He's the president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, which filed a complaint over that very video to the FEC. Good morning, J. Christian. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Pete.
So give us a sense. What is this all about?
Well, look, if this was a Tea Party group coordinating with the Trump campaign to incite violence at Clinton rallies or at NAACP events or whatever, we know exactly what would be happening. This would be a Justice Department would be fully investigating this for civil rights violations and all sorts of things. But this is a Justice Department and an FBI that is doling out justice based on your politics. If you support Clinton, if you are Clinton, you can engage in all sorts of misbehavior without consequence. If you're the IRS commissioner or an attorney general who's held in criminal contempt, you give you a pass.
Yeah.
You don't face justice under this administration.
It feels like a rigged system. So you've got this operative, Bob Creamer, who's clearly in with the White House, 300 visits. I've had none. And then he's on tape saying we're inciting violence at rallies, yet no accountability. I mean, what, in a perfect world, in a non-rigged world, what happens to Bob Creamer?
Well, I just think in America 20 years ago something happened.
Sure.
But the power of this videotape by Project Veritas is this, Pete. Most Americans don't have to put up with this garbage. They think the system generally works well. It's only people like me that have to read sort of the lies from groups like the Brennan Center who say there's no voter fraud, or law professors, or work at the DOJ like I did and hear the lawyers say we don't enforce the law against certain groups. Most people don't have to put up with that lawlessness. But because of this tape, people see it firsthand. They see the stuff that people have been going on Fox to talk about, and they get to see this corrosive thing happening in America.
Well, that's what it takes. If it's not on tape in this world today, sometimes it feels like it didn't happen at all. J. Christian Adams, thank you very much, and keep us posted on that FEC complaint. See if it goes anywhere. All right. All right, we're going to need a bigger basket for all of those deplorables out there.
How do all these folks, guys like me, all these old gray-haired white guys, how do they think our Social Security is going to hand out and our Medicare is going to keep?
Oh, Slick Willie, he's there. He's back. Governor Mike Huckabee responds to that next.
Good morning. Today is Saturday, October 22nd. I'm Abby Huntsman, and we start with a Fox News alerted unprecedented cyber attack taking down some of the most popular websites on Earth, and in a way we have never seen before. The hackers taking control of the connected devices and in your own home to carry out one of the biggest internet attacks in U.S. history.
And then we got a lecture on cybersecurity, and guess who the professor was? You're not going to believe it. Hillary Clinton.
My department reviewing policies and being alert to potential threats will help protect all of us.
In other words, don't put an unsecured server in your bathroom. That's our advice.
Advice of the morning, indeed. Oprah Winfrey ready to make a huge endorsement, but it isn't exactly glowing, you might say.
She's not coming over your house. You don't have to like her.
That isn't glowing. You know who is glowing? Abby Huntsman. And she's here all morning. Morning, our Better with Friends.
Oh, good morning. We're great to see you this morning. Pete Hegseth on the couch.
Great to see you both.
Of course, the excellent Abby Huntsman. We begin this morning with the race to the White House. We're just 17 days away from the election.
Can you believe that?
I know, it's unbelievable.
Days.
Just a little over 2 weeks, and Trump is gearing up for a major speech this morning.
That's right. It's one where he'll outline what the first 100 days of a Trump presidency would look like.
And we find Peter Ducey there. He is live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, ahead of the rally. I think beginning at 11 a.m. this morning, right, Peter?
Yeah, so we're about 4 hours away, and the Trump team tells us that today's big policy speech here in Gettysburg, PA, is supposed to do two things. First, give us a list of all the things that a President Trump would do in the first 100 days in the Oval Office. And then second, to show how they think those things would benefit regular folks more than the things Hillary Clinton is proposing.
If you just look at the stances on everything, she's going to raise taxes, I'm going to lower taxes. She's going to increase regulations, I'm going to cut regulations down to a minimum, a good number, but down to a minimum. And there's so many different things. We're going to rebuild the military, we're going to take care of our vets, we're going to save the Second Amendment, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, which is a total disaster. She wants to make it even a bigger mess.
We are told this particular speech is being delivered from Gettysburg because this is where Lincoln gave the famous Gettysburg Address that went a long way in uniting this country, and that's what Trump is trying to do as well. On top of that, the Keystone State is critical on the Trump electoral map. You can tell just by looking at his schedule. 2 events here yesterday, another one this morning. He's also going to be in Virginia and Ohio today as well. And late last night, Trump tweeted this, quote, "The media refuses to talk about the 3 new national polls that have me in first place. Biggest crowds ever. Watch what happens." Trump obviously beats up a lot on the media, and now almost every day he includes a line about how he thinks that the election is rigged against him, and that message seems to be resonating with Republicans in a big way because there's a new Reuters poll out that shows that 50% of Republicans don't plan to accept Hillary Clinton as president if she wins the election. And 70% of them say that they think the only way Hillary Clinton could win is by breaking the law on Election Day. Back to you.
All right, Peter Doocy live for us at Gettysburg. Thank you, Peter.
Peter Doocy. So, to bring us up to speed on everything that's happening in the world, we are honored to be joined by our friend, former Governor Mike Huckabee.
Good morning.
Good to see you, Governor.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, excellent. So what is Trump going to say today in Gettysburg, and what does he need to say, do you think, to shift the focus onto Hillary from himself over the next 17 days?
Well, Tucker, because he's at Gettysburg, what I hope he will do is to give the soaring rhetoric reminding America what happened there. It's very important that you use the venue in a very, very important way. And when Lincoln gave that very distinct address, he reminded people that there had been an extraordinary battle of Americans versus Americans. This is a great opportunity for Donald Trump to put that in the context of today's election. Nobody has been killing each other, but it's been Americans versus Americans. What Lincoln attempted to do was to talk about how to rebuild this nation where all of us are created equal. I wish I could write his speech for him today, because I would talk about the fact that we aren't equal today. Some people get justice, some get injustice. Some people are treated wonderfully by the Justice Department and by their government. Others are crushed by their government. And it's time to make America a country where all of us are equal. What an incredible frame for that message today. I hope that's what he delivers.
Right, and timing,
really
just
smart.
less than 3 weeks now before Election Day. You may have not written this speech this morning, Governor, but you certainly have closer access to the Trump circle than many people do. Give us a sense of what is going on behind closed doors. With, just as we said, less than 3 weeks to go, what are they talking about? How are they feeling about where they are in this moment, and what do they feel needs to be done between now and then?
Well, I think there's a combination of frustration that the media will not give attention to the revelations of Wikileaks, that they continue to ignore the obvious things that disqualify Hillary Clinton from ever getting near the White House again, even as a visitor. That's frustrating. But the good news is that there is a real sense of optimism. The Trump people recognize that when people are called and polled, they're not necessarily going to say they're for Trump. When people have a camera or microphone stuck in their face, they don't want their cars vandalized. They don't want their houses egged.
Right.
That's what's happening to people who openly support Trump. They get called bigots, homophobes, Islamophobes, xenophobes, some kind of phobe. People are really quiet, but I think we're going to see something very surprising on Election Day. I do think that there is momentum for the Trump campaign, and it's not just because of his rallies. I travel all the time, and whether it's a hotel lobby, an airplane, an airport, a restaurant, I have people all the time come to me. They look around and then they lean down and whisper, "I'm with Trump."
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. I don't hear anybody coming up to me and confronting me and saying, "I just want you to know I can't stand that you're for Trump because I'm for Hillary." Okay, fine. I had one person in the last few days just casually say, "Well, I'm going to vote for Hillary." But they weren't excited about it.
Yeah.
And the intensity of the voters for Trump is stunning.
Governor, that's right. I get the same experience speaking to conservative groups. There's that sense that the momentum could be, although hidden under the surface. You mentioned rallies. At some rallies over the course of the summer, Donald Trump took a lot of heat, outrage, faux or otherwise, from the media for it saying, "Hey, we rough up a protester," or "This is happening," or "That's happening." Well, yesterday we saw our vice president make a similar comment at a rally about what he would want to do to Donald Trump. We'll play the sound and get you to react.
He said, "Because I'm famous, because I'm a star, because I'm a billionaire, I can do things other people can't." What a disgusting assertion for anyone to make. The press always asks me, "Don't I wish I were debating him?" No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
It turns out some of those protesters at the Trump rallies were paid, but are we seeing a double standard here?
Oh my gosh. I mean, can you imagine if Mike Pence had said that he'd like to just go up and slap Hillary Clinton? Just think of the outrage. That's all we would be seeing on television this weekend. I mean, you got Joltin' Joe out here who now basically says he'd like to go and take a punch at Donald Trump. I'm just wondering if the Secret Service will do an investigation of Uncle Joe for having threatened a presidential candidate. Look, if it weren't so ridiculously absurd that Joe's out there saying this, it would almost be needed to be taken seriously. But I mean, what I got to say is, say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
Adding to the climate of hate. So here's Bill Clinton, who's still on the campaign trail, not always in a helpful way to his wife, explaining who these people are who oppose what he calls immigration reform. Watch this.
If these people who are spreading all this division and bad-mouthing America and bad-mouthing our future, they're against immigration reform when the only thing that we got keeping us young right now are our first-generation Americans. How do all these folks, guys like me, all these old gray-haired white guys, how do they think our Social Security is going to hand out and our Medicare is going to be funded?
Is he talking about himself?
At some point, you got to say, why is that not racially divisive? I hear this from the left all the time. All these old white guys. Really, if Mitt Romney 4 years ago had said, you know why I was winning? Because all these black guys are voting for him. Everybody, including me, would have said, whoa, no, you can't talk like that. You can't divide people explicitly along racial lines. Clinton says this kind of junk all the time. Pardon me, they all do. And nobody says anything. Why?
Well, Tucker, you can say it if you're a Democrat. You can say anything. You get away with anything. Nobody ever calls you out. The first thing I'd want to say to Bubba is, hey, Bubba, have you looked in the mirror lately? You are an old, gray-headed white guy. But look, here's the irony. He's not worried about his Social Security because at $1 million a speech, and sometimes even more, he doesn't have to live on Social Security. But you know why Social Security is in trouble? Because illegals don't pay it. That's why. Think about this. What he said is on his face ridiculous. Yes. One of the reasons that we are in trouble is when illegals take jobs, they don't pay the payroll tax, neither do their employers. That's why nobody in Washington wants to fix it, because the pressure is on to keep letting people make money under the table. But the fact is, we'll never fund Social Security as long as some people pay the payroll tax, the working stiffs, those old gray-haired white guys he's talking about, and then people come in illegally and they aren't paying for it.
No, that's well said, and you know it well, serving a number of years as governor. It's always good to have you on the show. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you, Governor.
Thanks, Governor.
Thanks a bunch, guys.
Good to see you.
It's that pesky detail. If there is a difference between legal and illegal.
Right. Just that little thing. All right, we do have some other headlines to get to this morning, beginning with a Fox News alert and brand new details on that massive cyber attack that knocked out major U.S. internet sites like Netflix, Twitter, and Amazon. Experts say hackers use phishing software to infect home-based devices like DVRs, cable boxes, and personal security cameras to take down these sites. Wikileaks claims that some of its supporters are behind the attacks. Here's what they're tweeting. Mr. Assange is still alive and Wikileaks is still publishing. We ask supporters to stop taking down the U.S. internet. You proved your point. And panic at Hillary Clinton's campaign office after a suspicious substance is found inside of a letter. Interns finding the white powdery substance in a letter at Clinton's Manhattan-based D.C. office before taking it to her Brooklyn headquarters. And it exposed 2 other people. Emergency crews then evacuated the entire floor. Police officials say the substance was tested overnight and is not considered dangerous. Clinton was not at the office at the time. A Democratic governor now apologizing for bashing Obamacare. Listen.
The reality is the Affordable Care Act is no longer affordable to increasing numbers of people.
So that's Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton. He says he regrets that his fellow Democrats are being attacked over what he said earlier, but he stands by his comments and is calling on a state to approve emergency measures to help people facing enormous rate hikes next year. And listen to this. Oprah says you don't have to like Hillary Clinton. You just need to vote for her.
People say, I just don't know if I like her.
Yeah.
She not coming over your house. You